All right, today we're going to dive into the incredible 100-year transformation of golf. And it's really a story of how a few simple changes to a ball and a stick turned into this high-tech battle between tradition and just pure raw power.
So, let's just paint a picture here. On one side, you've got a golfer from 1915, right? He's stuck in a heavy tweed jacket, swinging this whippy hickory club at a ball that flew super low and honestly pretty erratically. And on the other side, today's athlete. We're talking sleek, moisture-wicking gear, using a driver literally designed by AI to launch a ball that's being tracked by military-grade Doppler radar.
I mean, the equipment, the players, even the way the courses are manicured to this impossible standard, it's all just completely different. The change is staggering. So the question is, how on earth did we get from point A to point B? Okay, let's get into it.
Our journey really kicks off in the early 20th century. And, the first huge shifts didn't even come from the swing. Nope. It all started with the golf ball itself.
Before this, you gotta understand golf was played with this thing called a gutta percha, basically a solid ball made from tree sap that felt like hitting a rock. But then the new Haskell ball comes along. It has this springy rubber core wrapped in thread, and it just exploded off the club face. All of a sudden, golf became a game played through the air, not just bumping along the ground. And that right there changed course design forever. You needed longer holes, you needed to think about strategic aerial shots, a whole different game.
Then you have what was basically a civil war in club manufacturing. See, hickory shafts had soul, sure, but every single one was different. They were inconsistent, they twisted easily, but steel shafts, which were legalized in the late 1920s, they were uniform and totally predictable. This meant you could mass-produce matched sets of clubs, and that consistency is what really unlocked the modern, powerful golf swing.
And here's a brilliant story about how just a simple observation can change everything. Gene Sarazen, he was really struggling in the bunkers, and he gets inspired by the flaps on an airplane wing. So what does he do? He solders lead to the bottom of his club, creating what we now call bounce. It let the club glide through the sand instead of digging in, turning an absolute nightmare of a shot into something you could actually handle. Genius.
Now, the guy who really defined this whole era was the legendary amateur Bobby Jones. He was the one who proved that real power, true power, didn't come from brute force. It came from rhythm and timing. His swing was just poetry in motion, and his advice? It still rings true for every single golfer out there today.
So, this foundation leads us right into an era where the game's personalities became larger than life. With the rise of television, golf needed superstars. And believe me, a few legends were more than ready for their close-up.
First up, you have Ben Hogan. He's this almost mythical figure who, after a horrific car crash, literally had to rebuild his body and his swing from scratch. He practiced until his hands bled, developing this flat, rotational swing that produced a ball flight that just would not curve. He didn't just play golf, he treated it like a math problem that he was determined to solve.
And then, in complete contrast, you had Sam Snead. Where Hogan was all tension and mechanics, Snead was just fluid and natural. He had what a lot of people still call the most beautiful swing in history, this oily rhythm that just generated effortless power. His whole philosophy was simple. Tension is the enemy of speed.
And you put these two forces together, the reckless, charismatic Arnold Palmer versus the methodical, powerful Jack Nicklaus, and I mean, talk about perfect drama for TV. Palmer, he made golf cool, and Nicklaus, well, he perfected the modern power game. Their rivalry is what took the sport from the country club and put it right into the living rooms of millions of people.
The next few decades, things get wild. We see this just boom, an explosion in materials science that would fundamentally change not just the clubs, but the golf ball itself, making the game we see today even possible.
And what's really amazing here is just how fast everything started moving. In only 3 decades, we went from steel shafts to lightweight graphite, from these tiny wooden drivers to giant metal woods, and it all culminates in the single most disruptive piece of technology the game has ever seen.
So let's talk about a concept that changed everything for the average golfer: forgiveness. This was pioneered by the iconic Ping Answer putter. By moving weight to the heel and the toe, the putter became way more stable if you didn't hit it perfectly. It just made putting easier for everybody, and it's still the most copied design in history.
But while all the club designers were busy engineering forgiveness, a force of nature was about to redefine what was humanly possible. A 21-year-old Tiger Woods, he didn't just win the '97 Masters, he completely dismantled the course and the entire field. And he basically forced an entire generation of golfers to realize they needed to start hitting the gym.
And yet, for all the talk about drivers and fitness and everything else,
The single biggest innovation was the Titleist Pro V1 ball in 2000. This solid core ball did what everyone thought was impossible. It gave you massive distance with low spin off the tee and pinpoint control with high spin around the greens. It was the holy grail, and it made pretty much all older tech obsolete, like overnight.
And that brings us right up to today, the modern era, where the art of golf has really become a science. It's all driven by data, by analytics, and this endless quest for total optimization.
You go to any pro driving range today and you'll see these little orange boxes everywhere. They're called TrackMan. They use Doppler radar to measure every single aspect of the golf swing you can imagine. So players no longer guess if they hit it well, they know exactly why. They optimize their launch angle, their spin rate, every little variable to squeeze out every last yard.
So what do you do with all that data? Well, you come up with a strategy that completely dominates the tour today, bomb and gouge. And the math is actually pretty simple. Just hit the ball as far as you possibly can, because a wedge shot from the rough is almost always easier than a 7-iron from the fairway.
And the result of all this? Honestly, it's created a bit of a crisis for the sport. Players are hitting the ball so incredibly far that many of the game's most historic, most revered courses, well, they're becoming kind of defenseless. It's forcing the people who run the sport to actually consider rolling back technology just to preserve golf's classic challenges. So, when you step back and look at the whole century, the journey is just wild. Club materials went from wood to carbon fiber. The ball went from basically a solid lump of tree sap to a multi-layer, solid-core piece of science. And the theory of the swing itself went from pure feel to mechanics to a deep study of biomechanics. So the equipment, it's evolved beyond recognition. It has made the game objectively easier. And yet, here's the crazy part. The average golfer's handicap hasn't really gotten any better in the last 30 years. And that leaves us with this fascinating final thought. All the technology in the world can't conquer the nerves you feel over a 4-foot putt. It can't silence that little voice in your head. Because that internal battle, that has been and it always will be the true soul of golf.